What's up, guys? This is Nick from Arch City Poker, and in today's video, I'm going to be continuing the poker hand review series with today's hand covering a live 2-5 hand where I'm going to title, I guess, the video When a Scare Card is Not Really a Scare Card. I actually have an article on my website. It's one of the first articles that I ever wrote, and I think it's a very good one for you guys to possibly read. It's the same title, When a Scare Card is Not Really a Scare Card. And I may try to actually, I'm not sure if I'll be able to link that up or not for you guys, but yeah, if you visit my site at www.archcitypoker.com, you will be able to go to that article, which I believe is under No Limit Hold'em Cash, under that tab. So without further ado, let's get into the hand, and we're going to use Poker Snowy today. It'll kind of be, for you guys that haven't seen Poker Snowy before, a little sneak peek into what this software is like and how you can use it if you decide to purchase this and help your games a little bit further. So live 2-5 game, we were six-handed. I am under the gun with the girl avatar here, and I have black pocket nines, and I decide to open to 4x. Pretty standard in these games. I've noticed that I was raising a little small, like more standard, like with like 15. And if I could make it 12, I would prefer to make it 2.5x. But players in these live games, as you guys know, they will call with much worse hands for much more. And so it just makes more sense to put more money in the pot preflop and push your preflop edges. So my standard's been about 4x and making it $5 more for each limper. So I opened to 4x under the gun, and a pro in the cutoff decides to call. I don't know this player personally. I've played with him only a couple times. From what I understand, he is a very smart, pretty solid player. I think he, from what I noticed, and I don't like to take away too much from only playing a few sessions with a particular player, but I did notice that he seemed pretty aggressive, like maybe overly aggressive with his draws. And the thing is, in these games, guys, is what I was trying to say, is that you can exploitively be a little more aggressive and take advantage of more fold equity, just because barreling will be a little more profitable against players that are just going to overfold. So I don't think there's a need for him to try and balance his draws out too much. And that, the reason I bring this up is this is going to come into play here in this hand, and I'll show you guys. But so yeah, I would describe him though as very smart. He's obviously playing professionally, so I give him a lot of respect. Good player in the button decides to call as well, and it gets, I think, yeah, the blinds both fold. So we see a flop of jack of clubs, seven of spades, six of spades, and this is a flop that I think I would mix actually c-betting sometimes. I like to polarize my c-betting on certain types of board textures. This one is an interesting texture because I do think it hits some calling ranges decently strong. I think this is a decent combo to c-bet with sometimes because of the ability to block their continues. I get some protection and some thin value on this hand. So there's a lot of cards like spade turns, any 5, any 8, any 10 is pretty decent. So there's a lot of decent turns if I do decide to c-bet and try to continue with this hand as part of like a semi-bluff line, or trying to get thin value, that type of thing, and protection. So I do go ahead and check, and I'll show you guys. So Snowy pretty much agrees with me about 50-50 on c-betting small here. If you are going to size it up, though, then Snowy does like a check. And like I said, if you are going to size up your c-bets, you're going to want to be more polarized, essentially. And let's say that you like to bet closer to pot right here. The types of hands that you would want to do that with are often going to be like ace-jack plus, and then your immediate draws, and then stuff pretty much like king, queen of clubs, king, 10 of clubs, ace, queen, ace, 10 of clubs, that type of stuff, where you have that backdoor equity, and also some stuff like maybe king, queen of diamonds, king, queen of hearts, those types of hands that maybe don't have showdown value. But I'm not sure I'd be c-betting those at too high of a frequency, just because this board texture, I feel like I don't have as much fold equity, and this texture just doesn't hit my range that strongly. So I think if you are going to size it up, then this combo deserves to be checked. But if you are going to size it down and bet close to your whole range here, I think this combo fits in decently well. I do think I would, bottom line, probably check this most of the time and then bet sometimes. So I do go ahead and check this time, and it checks through. And we see a very interesting turn, a 9 of diamonds, which I end up turning the set on, obviously. Interesting spot where I think both these players, but particularly my villain in this hand, the pro, I think he'll take my second check as pretty much me giving up. And I think he would end up stabbing here with a lot of different types of hands. I think he might even start to value bet something like, or maybe like thin value and protection with a hand like 8-7 suited or 8-6 suited, maybe ace-7, ace-6 possibly. I do think he flats a little wider than what is optimal from what I've seen. So I definitely think he can have those types of hands in here. And because of that, because I'm playing with another pro, I would like to mix my strategy, and I don't always want to be at like the bottom of my range when I go check, check here. So I think it's a really nice spot to go for a check raise and possibly look a little empty, as there's not a lot of value hands that I would play like this. So I think I can rep a lot of bluffs this way. So I do check, and the pro ends up firing 35, basically about half pot. And the button folds, and I do go for the check raise. And the pro ends up calling, which is pretty interesting to me. And I'm going to get into the river in a sec here, and the topic of when a scare card is not really a scare card. So without thinking about this card right now, we need to think about what his lead turn call a check raise range is, essentially. And I could definitely see him having some spade draws played this way, some pair plus straight draw where he maybe has like something like 9-8, even though I block that pretty hard. But yeah, you could have like 9-8 suited, 8-7 suited, 8-6 suited. Maybe he did check a jack on the flop. I highly doubt that though. Like I said, I think this player on the flop would have bet pretty much most of his draws like close to 100% of the time. Like maybe he checks sometimes, but I think he's definitely more aggressive with jack plus here and then spade draws and immediate gutters plus. So how to go about this river. So I planned it that if this kind of card fell, I would go check call, because I don't think that he has like two pair played this way. Like I said, I think like a hand like Queen Jack would have been bet on the flop pretty much 100% of the time. So I can't really see betting here getting anything, like accomplishing anything, unless I bet very small, like something like fourth pot. And that could work because I could maybe get him to call with worse. I can get him, I can maybe induce him to possibly bluff raising. So I think either like really small bet or check is the best play here. And I think Snowy, from what I remember, yeah, so Snowy does like a small bet and then a check. And that makes a lot of sense for all the reasons I said. I think that I would like to value bet this kind of hand sometimes, but it's going to need to be small, because if I size this up close to even like half pot or up to closer to pot, then I think I'm only often getting called by flushes and straights. So it wouldn't make a lot of sense to value bet with that kind of sizing. So I think that it's an interesting river, and a lot of players would take it as definitely a scare card. I'm not saying that it's a card that I like to see, but because I think that he barrels, or at least not barrels, but definitely bets most of his spade draws on the flop, I discount a lot of his river flushes. And as far as the straight goes, the only straight that really makes sense here would be, well, and it doesn't even make sense, but like King 10, I'm not worried about at all, because I don't think this player's bet calling on the turn with King 10 that's not spades. I also think on the turn that 10-8, and if he for some reason had 8-5 suited, but I don't think he's quite that loose, I think 10-8 suited would find possibly a 3-bet after my check raise on the turn here, just because it gets it in so well against my sets and my two pair that I either played slowly or turned. So I highly discount straights, like to the point to where I don't think he had any. And because I think he's more aggressive with his flush draws, like overly aggressive, I highly discount him having flushes here. So it's really interesting because then what does he have? And I think that because he thinks this is a good scare card to bluff, and I like his bet a lot exploitively against the player pool that I play in. I think most players with my hand might find a fold way more often than they should on this particular type of river. But for the reasons I stated, I think that this was a relatively easy call. And I took my time. I went back and replayed through the hand and tried to make sure I constructed his range properly. So he did end up firing 240 on this river, and I ended up calling. And he showed up with a little surprising to me, but it makes sense because I just can't see what types of hands he's turning into bluffs here. He did have just ace high with the missed open ender essentially. And I, like I said, I like his bet exploitively as far as going against our player pool or players in live low stakes games. I think that he gets players to fold two pair here every single time and possibly even some sets. So I think this is a very profitable bet. However, going against a player such as myself, not to brag, but somebody that can read hands and construct ranges very well, I think that this is a pretty poor bet just because he doesn't block any spades. And although he blocks the straight as far as 8x goes, I think a lot of my hands that I check raise on the turn here, I think a lot of that is going to be some spade draws if I don't have made hands. And so everything for me pretty much gets there. And that's why I don't like his bet for that reason. But like I said, I do think it's profitable in a vacuum against this player pool. So pretty interesting spot. It's a spot where I don't want you guys to just assume that this card being a quote scare card is something that always has you beat. But I do think that it's an interesting spot to show you guys this and to show you how to construct ranges and show you when these guys are possibly very capped on the river here. And before I wrap it up, I know you guys can see that Snowy has me folding about 6% of the time. That is because Snowy has this player playing close to GTO and balancing his flop check bet or check strategy with some flushes and possibly some hands that are straight draws, even though I think Snowy doesn't have as many of those in his range just because he should be calling with a much tighter range pre-flop, but a lot of these guys are going to be a lot looser. So I think because he doesn't balance his draws well enough with some checks on the flop, that makes it to where this is going to be a call like 100% of the time. So if you guys hear any random noises right now in the background, that is my cats going crazy, so I apologize for that. But yeah, if you guys have any questions or comments about this hand or this topic in general, let me know. Again, if you want to read the article that I wrote that is based on this topic from a long while back, almost a year back now, it is titled When a Scare Card is Not Really a Scare Card. I believe that's what the title is, and it's on my website. So anyway, yeah, until next time, this is Nick from Arch City Poker. Take care.